The storm on Aurora Station was never real rain, just mist from machines. But to Nova Lyran, it felt like the universe itself was crying for her as she sat in her silent hover chair, staring at a single flickering candle on a forgotten birthday cake. Once a fearless star pilot, now a grounded soul hidden from the world, she believed her story had ended. But the knock about to echo through that lonely cafe door would shatter everything she thought she knew about love, family, and destiny. If you are new to the channel, then please subscribe to the channel and like the video and tell us where are you watching from. Now let's jump into the story. The rain on Harmonia Ring 9 wasn't really rain. It was a timed condensation sweep, drifting in soft veils to polish the biodome's lungs. To Nalaya Vorant, it still felt honest as it threaded down the cafe's clear wall windows, each drop catching neon like a string of tiny comets. Her hover chair purred at a precise height, balanced the way her life wasn't. 27 today. Candles, 1. Guests, 0. 2 cycles ago, Nalaya had been the shock of green streaking across asteroid lanes, Aurora Wing's ace, brain-to-ship reflexes amplified by draconian bioconductive scales. Then a sand grain shard arrived at the wrong angle and turned ordinary space into a storm of magnets and light. She survived. The feeling of flight didn't. The cake was chocolate, because human academy years had taught her that chocolate understood everything. She whispered, "Happy birthday now." And the fork trembled in her hand, like an unlaunched ship. "That is the saddest dessert I have ever seen," a small voice announced. Nalaya blinked at the blue-haired child beside her table. The kid's dress bloomed with tiny holographic comets that kept colliding and apologizing. "I'm Nova," the child said, palms planted on hips. "No one is allowed to face cake alone. It's like cosmic rudeness." "Nova," a man hurried in, nearly colliding with a serving bot. He carried the scent of machine oil and rain metal. His jumpsuit had the kind of stains that meant work, not neglect, and his hair had clearly lost a fight with his own hands. "I'm so sorry," he said, breathless. "We'll leave you in peace. Nova, say sorry." "I will not," Nova said, indignant. "She needs a choir." Nalaya studied them. The man's eyes were a tired kind, but gentled with care. There was a way he stood near the child, not crowding her freedom, but still being her shelter. Nalaya's 3 "I have more cake than sense." The man hesitated. "If you're sure." "I'm Jace. I keep the transport veins from having tantrums." "This meteor with legs is my daughter." "I'm meteorically responsible," Nova corrected, then beamed at Nalaya. "What's your name?" "Nalaya." "Beautiful," Nova declared. "Okay, Dad. On 3. 1, 2, they sang. Nova was bold and off-key. Jace was low and sincere, and Nalaya's small smile unlatched something rusted inside. When she opened her eyes, they were wet. Nova gasped. "Oh no, we made you leak." "Happy tears," Nalaya said, wiping her cheeks. "You're very good at birthdays." "I practice," Nova said. "Dad's birthdays used to hurt. We fixed them with confetti and pancakes." "Pancakes help," Jace murmured, almost to himself. Nalaya laughed, and the sound startled even her. The laugh rang against the cafe chrome like a little bell and did not echo alone. "Hoverchair specs?" Nova asked, scooting closer with all the subtlety of a co. "Is that a Vesta 12? Do the gyros do the triple cascade thing?" Jace put a hand to his forehead. "Nova is in a deep question era." "I like it," Nalaya said. "Ask me anything." So Nova did. She wanted to know if scales could change color, if pilots got lonely in long-burn silence, if cocoa behaved differently in low gravity, and whether stars smelled like anything. Nalaya admitted her scales flushed gold when happy, ember red when mad, and a shy blue when flustered. Nova squealed, delighted. Jace kept apologizing for the barrage until Nalea finally tilted her head and said softly, "Please don't. The questions feel like air." They ate cake and swapped tiny stories. Jace confessed he once inverted a gravity tube and spent hours shepherding drifting commuters with a mop and an apology. Nova confessed she had reprogrammed a school dispenser to serve pudding at random intervals for science. Nalaya confessed she had once named her starfighter Quiet Thunder and missed the cockpit the way a violin might miss its strings. When the cafe doors sighed open, a shadow flickered into view on the far wall, the loom of a heraldic crest pulsing through station ads. Archon Malgor, the draconian patriarch who preferred titles first and feelings later. Nalaya's jaw set. Jace noticed the shift of her scales toward a guarded green. "That news?" he asked gently. "Old news," she said. "I come from a family that cares very loudly about image." "We care loudly about pancakes," Nova said. "It's better." Nalaya smiled at that, a real one. She asked if they would meet again tomorrow. Jace started to demur. Nova jumped in. Yes, we will." "Only if we won't intrude," Jace said. "You won't," Nalaya said, and realized she meant it. When they left, Nova waved with both hands. The biodome's gentle rain rehearsed its next fall. Nalaya stayed a moment longer, listening to her hoverchair hum like a steady heart. For the first time in months, the solitude didn't feel like a closed door. It felt like a hallway, and somewhere down it, she heard small feet and careful hands, and something like hope. Outside, Harmonia's transit vanes flickered again, a brief shiver through the grid. The serving bot paused mid-swipe, then resumed. None of them knew it yet, but that flicker would matter. For now, there was only the taste of chocolate, the echo of a birthday song, and the quiet, impossible beginning of a family. The next afternoon, at 1500, Nalaya arrived early. Her scales were already soft gold, which would have mortified her once. Now it felt like sunlight under skin. Nova barreled in, carrying a round creature with too much curiosity and not enough permission. "This is Nib," she announced. "Definitely not a prohibited quibble. It is absolutely licensed by me." "We don't have a license," Jay sighed, setting a small toolbox aside. "We have a promise to keep it out of ventilation." "Ventilation is where it wants to pursue advanced degrees," Nova whispered to Nalaya. Nib purred and promptly tried to eat a napkin. Nalaya placed the napkin on the table like a small, dignity-saving pillow. No ventilation universities for now. Their daily cafe ritual became a rhythm. Nova's theories, Jace's stories, Nalaya's hesitant jokes growing bolder. They branched out into evenings too. Nalaya visited Jace's small apartment in the mechanics quarter, where mugs were mismatched, the couch was honest, and the windows showed the station's ribs like the inside of a whale. Nova handed Nalaya paper and paints and said, "Make the rain look like how it feels." Nalaya did. She painted light. Over noodles one night, Jace spoke of Maris, Nova's mother. A Centauri botanist, with starlit freckles and a laugh that tilted rooms toward joy. "We met over a mineral scanner," he said, smiling at a memory that still ached. "She told me my calibrations were passable, and then stole my sandwich. I loved her the next breath." Maris had gotten sick, the kind of rare sickness that statistics call negligible until it isn't. Nova listened quietly, then leaned into her father's side. Nalaya listened too, and felt something steady move into place, like the last bolt in a bridge. Nalaya shared, in return, the details she usually hid, the training runs that felt like prayer, the sensation of thought becoming motion, the tiny meteor that didn't know it was a ruin. She admitted she felt like a map that had lost its legend. Nova frowned thoughtfully. Maps without legends are just waiting for new ones. She does this, Jace said, says something simple and topples me. It's a family hobby, Nova declared. Days layered. Nib learned to pretend to play dead whenever Nova screamed, drama mode. Stella, a child from the corridor 2 blocks over, began waving through the cafe window. Jace and Nalaya swapped playlists, a trade of Quiet Thunder and Old Earth folk songs. Sometimes, in the soft end of evening, Nalaya would catch Jace watching her, like he was trying to memorize a language he was already fluent in. One rain-washed night, Nova was at a classmate's party, and the cafe felt wider without her comet energy. Jace sat across from Nalaya, hands around a mug he never finished. "May I ask you something?" he said. "You can ask me anything." "Why us?" His voice was careful. "You could spend your time with people who orbit titles, not a mechanic and a kid who jailbreaks snack dispensers." She considered. "Because you see me," she said. "Not the dynasty, not the headline, not the accident. Just Nalaya." He looked down, laughed once, then up. "Then I should say the thing I keep not saying." Her hearts faltered into a new rhythm. "I'm in love with you," Jace said. And the honesty of it landed like gravity finally turned on. "I know you're made of starlight and steel, and I'm mostly coffee and bolts, but I love you. If that's too much, say the word, and I'll place it gently on a shelf, and we'll keep what we have." "I am not what I was," Nalaya said. "I'm not sure I know how to be loved like this." "You don't have to know," he said. "We can learn together." The cafe's lights steadied. Her scales drifted toward warm gold. "Then yes," she whispered, surprised to find the yes waiting there all along. They didn't kiss yet. They just sat with the word between them, like a candle you warm your hands over. The morning after, a gossip feed burned through the ring. Dynasty daughter abandons duty for mechanic's bunk and black market pets. A grainy still of Nalaya's hoverchair outside Jace's building painted her as scandal instead of person. The headline spelled her name wrong, then spelled it again louder. Jace's jaw flexed. Nova read the feed and frowned until her freckles looked like constellations with opinions. Nalaya felt the old bruise stir. Legacy that loved appearances more than people. A message blinked from Archon Melgor, a summons dressed as concern. She didn't go immediately. She went to see Stella instead, because that was the day the transit tube decided to argue with its own math, and a little Andromedan dancer fell. The medtechs said the quiet words Nalaya knew by weight. Stella's parents curled around each other, with the helplessness of people, suddenly fluent in grief. Nalaya drifted her chair to the bedside. "I can't walk either," she said softly. "And I still learn new kinds of flying." Stella looked at the ceiling. "I wanted to dance." "You still can," Nalaya said. "It'll be different, not less." Nova slipped in, smuggling a contraband smile and a glittered card. "We're going to build you a show," she promised. "You'll spin so fast, the stars will get dizzy." When they left the medbay that night, Harmonious Plaza was crowded. The gossip crew had chosen a dramatic backdrop, the fountain, the news hollow. The perfect place to turn a person into a point. Nalaya felt her scales flicker ember red, the color that said fire would be easy. Nova didn't wait for permission. She climbed onto the fountain ledge with a borrowed loudhailer and breathed until her tiny chest stopped shaking. Then she spoke, and every syllable was a small bridge. "You're talking about my friend," she said. "You forgot she's human, and dragon, and art, and the best at listening when your whole day hurts. You forgot cake law. You forgot kindness." The plaza stilled. Lenses hesitated. Jace stood below like a lighthouse. Nalaya, up against the old reflex to retreat, remembered the candle between their hands, and held her ground. "You don't get to shrink people to fit a headline," Nova said. "We're more than that, all of us." Newscams hate when crowds stop agreeing. The feed faltered. Somewhere, a single clap started. "That's one," Nova said into the loudhailer, then grinned, because hope likes to count. The single clap belonged to Stella, wheeled forward by parents whose eyes had found a new edge of hope. Then others joined. Mechanics who knew Jace as the guy who stayed late to keep their commutes safe. Shopkeepers who watched Nova barter stickers for stories. Night shift nurses who'd seen Nalaya show up without fanfare to teach a 7-year-old how to turn a hallway into choreography. The gossip crew packed fast, stashed their barbed words, and went hunting easier storms. Afterward, the plaza loosened into something like a block party. Stella insisted on demonstrating a spin she'd practiced with a training chair. She wobbled, then grinned so wide the wobble didn't matter. Nova crowned her with a paper ring cut hastily from a pastry bag. "Queen of spiral velocity," Nova declared. "Long may she zoom." Under a hanging garden of recycled glass lanterns, Archon Melgor arrived. He didn't bring flares of ceremony, just his own shadow and the tension of history. Nalaya's scales thought about turning defensive purple. She set them to neutral with a breath. "Father," she said. "Daughter," he replied, as if the word were a territory he was relearning. He took in Jace with a slow blink and Nova with a frown that became reluctant amusement when she attempted to bow and nearly launched her loudhailer into the fountain. "Your child is a weather system," he observed. "Chi is the entire forecast." Jace said. Malgor's gaze returned to Nalaya. "This man, is he after our name?" "He is after decent coffee and enough hours to fix things," Nalaya said. "And he loves his child. He loves me without tally marks." "That last claim is unverifiable," Malgor said, like a man hiding behind old armor. Nova stepped forward, hands in fists the size of strawberries. "Sir, we are very verified." Jace swallowed a laugh. Nalaya, absurdly, wanted to hug everyone and also take a nap under a table. They walked a little, away from the plaza's relief. Malgor spoke of legacy, as if it were a lighthouse that could not possibly be blinding. Nalaya answered with what she had learned. That legacy without love is a monolith casting cold shade. "I almost gave up," she told him quietly. "On the day with the single candle. I almost stopped choosing days." Malgor's scales flickered, a soft static. "I did not know." "You didn't look," she said, not cruelly, simply truthful. "A small person did, and a mechanic with gentle hands did. They asked if they could stay." Malgor's shoulders dropped a fraction, as if something heavy had shifted position inside his chest. "Then I should learn to stay as well." He did not fix everything with one sentence. Myths pretend we can. Real life is a patient engineer. But he started showing up. He listened to Nova's elevator pitches for ideas like friendship-powered reactors and polite black holes. He watched Stella learn a wheel turn that made a ripple of applause move like wind over grass. He told Nalaya a story from when she was 3, about the day she tried to fly from the balcony with bedsheets and a belief in miracles. He admitted he had been terrified and also secretly proud. The admission arrived late, but it arrived. Meanwhile, Jace and Nalaya turned their small apartment into a laboratory for joy. Nib acquired a tiny harness that said intern. Nova's homework contained suspicious equations with titles like donut velocity potential. Stella's room at the med center grew posters and light strand galaxies. When she was released, they held a parade that ended at the cafe with confetti that took 3 cleanings to fully vanquish. Because of the accident, because of the plaza, because of Nova's speech and Malgor's thawing, doors opened. Jace was invited to consult on station-wide maintenance improvements. Nalea was asked to help design hoverchair mods for better spinal support and real speed. She handed the credit to a research team publicly, and they handed it back. This, too, felt like healing. "You want to hire me," Jace said, struggling to keep incredulous from becoming impolite. "I want to build with you," Malgor answered. "We mine. You know machines. We have a medical division starving for vision. Bring your maps." Jace glanced at Nalea. She gave him a small nod that was also a shove toward the future. "Conditions," he said, voice steady. "We fund spinal research and mobility tech. We give Nova supervised lab time when she's ready. We do it as equals." Malgor tilted his head. "You negotiate with the Archon of 12 sectors. I negotiate with my kid's grandparent," Jace said. "Which is scarier?" A pause stretched like a held breath. "Agreed," Malgor said, and something in the room exhaled. In the weeks that followed, Harmonia Ring 9 learned a new word: collaborative. Engineers and medics shared hallways. The research wing got brighter paint and better snacks. Nova snuck in a handmade sign above the main door. "We fix broken things by believing they are not broken." Someone tried to remove it. The next morning there were 10 copies. Stella started a hover dance troupe with Nalea as coach and a growing pack of kids who needed somewhere to put their bravery. Their first performance was messy. "Tomorrow," she said, convinced, "will be the kind of day that needs extra pockets." "For what?" Nalea asked. "For all the good." On Nalea's next birthday, the cafe table was crowded enough to make the serving bots anxious. Jace's hand rested over hers, easy as breathing. Nova, now 8 and louder in ideas than in volume, tried to convince Malgor that quarterly reports could be improved with tastefully placed fireworks. Stella showed off new wheel guards that sparkled like meteor tails. Nib wore a bow tie someone insisted was dignified. Harmonia's Rain performed its practiced ballet outside. "Make a wish," Nova commanded, sliding a cake onto the table that had been iced by a generous individual with an unstable love of glitter. Nalea looked around. She saw the father who had learned to speak gently without relinquishing strength. She saw the mechanic who loved like craft, with patience, precision, and joy. You saw a child who turned courage into weather, a dancer who refused to let a changed body mean a smaller life, a research wing that hummed with the sentence, "We can do better." "I don't need one," she said, smiling. "I have it." "Illegal," Nova declared. "Birthday bylaws require a wish." "Very well," Nalea said, and closed her eyes to make a wish that was not a petition, but a promise. More days like this, more small kindnesses that add up to galaxies, more laughter that lets the hard parts unclench, more staying. The candles went out, cheers went up. A serving bot got emotional and dropped a fork. "Unrelated," Nova said, which meant extremely related. "May I conduct a tiny, controlled test in the corner where nothing important is stored?" "What kind of test?" Jace asked, every muscle in his face whispering, "Oh no." "A pastry portal," Nova said. "A very tiny doorway for humanitarian donut relief. I've been practicing safe equations." "Non-explosive, mom-level safe," Nova said, using the name she'd given Nalea without ceremony months ago. "The kind where if it works, we clap, and if it doesn't, we mop." The adults made the kind of eye contact that contains entire novels. Nalea shrugged, laughing. "One tiny test," she said, with a mop within arm's reach. They picked a corner. Nova taped boundaries on the floor, because science loves tape. She placed a ring of harmless field nodes, each no bigger than a coin. Nib supervised with great importance. Stella volunteered as the official timer. Malgor, who had once commanded entire fleets with a glance, held the mop. Nova inhaled, exhaled, pressed a single switch. For 1 second, nothing. For the next second, everything. A soft pop, like a bubble discovering ambition. A whispering wind that smelled of cinnamon. And then, from every bakery, cafe, and vending unit on Harmonia Ring 9, pastries vanished and reappeared in a gentle rain into the station commander's office, 3 levels up and 1 corridor over. The office plexi fogged with sugar. The commander yelled something polite and astonished. Everyone in the cafe froze. Nova did not breathe. Jace made a sound like a man's soul stepping on a Lego. Malgor lifted the mop with the dignity of a king preparing for battle. Nalea started to laugh. It wasn't mocking or mean. It was the laugh that happens when fear recedes and wonder drops by uninvited. Stella joined her. Then Jace. Then Malgor, who tried to scowl and failed. "Cleanup brigade," Nalea announced. "Let's go apologize with napkins." The commander, to her credit, took it well. She tasted a cronut, blinked, and said, "I will accept this as a stress test of our pastry containment protocols." There was an hour of sticky chaos and cheerful scrubbing, and a new station joke that would survive for years. Nova wrote a report titled Unexpected Pastry Displacement Event, Causes, Learnings, and Improved Boundaries. Malgor wrote a footnote that said, Recommend caution, approve curiosity. That night, when quiet finally found them, Nalaya and Jace wheeled out under the biodome rain. Nova slept sprawled across 2 chairs, nib on her stomach, like a fuzzy comet. Malgor pretended to read a policy brief, while mostly staring at his granddaughter like a star chart he hadn't known he missed. "You okay?" Jace asked Nalaya, voice warm. "I am perfect," she said, testing the word and discovering it fit without pinching. "Even with the pastry incident." "Especially with the pastry incident," he said. "It's very us." She thought of the day with 1 candle, of the almost choice to stop choosing. She thought of Nova's fountain speech and Stella's spin and Malgor's slow unlearning of a lifetime of marble. She thought of the research wing's lights, the new chairs gliding down corridors with little flags that said names, not diagnoses. "Thank you for staying," she told him. "Thank you for asking me to," he said. The rain fell in tidy lines, tuned to the dome's needs. Still, Nalaya imagined some drops were messy on purpose, a small rebellion allowed because it made the world kinder. She squeezed Jace's hand. Somewhere above them, the station rotated. Somewhere beyond that, stars minded their ancient business. And right here, in a cafe that had learned how to hold the weight of many stories, a family promised itself small, brave tomorrows. Later, when Nova proposed launching paper gliders with handwritten vows stapled to their spines, no one said no. They folded sheets quietly. Nalaya wrote, "I will keep learning new ways to fly." Jace wrote, "I will fix what I can and forgive what I can't." Malgor wrote, "I will visit without speeches." Stella wrote, "I will dance in every hallway." They tossed the gliders under the biodome drizzle. They rose, dipped, and drifted, then settled across tablet tops and benches like white birds at rest. Months from now, Nova would tighten her equations, and the portal would move only the pastries she asked it to the break room that needed them most. Years from now, Stella would perform on a stage that had ramps as a default, not an afterthought. Malgor would tell a story that started, "Once I was wrong." Sonalia would still feel the ache of the cockpit sometimes, but the ache would be a map, not a wound. For tonight, there was warmth, and lemon tarts from the commanders lost and found, and the knowledge that the universe is held together by countless small decisions to stay. And somewhere in the station's ducts, Nib began writing a memoir with crumbs.